ice just went out.
Hey guys, welcome to the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy Show. We are joined by Jay Tanooki here at FanQuest.
Hey guys, this is that Mask Guy, the 7th Queen of Thunder, and we are also live on Facebook as well.
And we're still amateur at this.
We are totally amateurs at this.
So I guess we'll start with explain where you started, why you cosplay.
Sure, yeah. I got started cosplaying about 14 years ago. I attended I think it was actually the second Icon. There weren't a lot of conventions going on in the city, and cosplay certainly wasn't as big of a community or as big of an industry as it is now. It's very, very humble beginnings of cosplay, I would call it. My very first cosplay, actually going out and wearing something, was Pan from Dragon Ball GT. I happened to have some denim capris that I already owned. I also happened to have a small blue backpack and some blue runners that I also conveniently owned, and bought an oversized red t-shirt, cut it in half, made a bandana out of part of the cuttings, and added some yellow trim to it. And that was infant Jay Tanooki in cosplay back in, I think that would have been 2002, I think. And so now I've been cosplaying for almost 14 years, or 13 years. But I've only been really active in the cosplay community for about 3.5, and touring around to all the conventions in Winnipeg, as well as exploring some other conventions outside of the province and outside of the country.
What are some of the cosplays that you've went off and have done, or some of your more favorite ones, I suppose?
Well, definitely, some of it's hard to pick favorites because everything that you build, everything you work on is kind of your baby. You pick and choose your costumes for very specific personal reasons. But certainly, my most popular ones that I'm known for are my Arcade Misfortune from League of Legends, my version of Catwoman, which is based off of the Play Arts Kai figure designed by Tetsuya Nomura, who's the art director for Final Fantasy, Gogo Tamago from Big Hero 6, the armored version with actual magnetic discs. I can take them off of my arms and throw them, and they magnetically go back on my arms. Yeah, I would say those are some of the most notable ones for sure. And now all of a sudden, my Repulsa, which is coming out tomorrow for FanQuest, is also starting to make a bit of a scene too. So.
I actually saw pictures of that from you in Calgary, I think it was.
Yes, yeah, I debuted that in Calgary, as well as the costume I'm wearing right now. I've got half of it on because it's nearing the end of the convention day, so, things sort of come off, not even just for cosplayers, but I think for everybody else, things just start to come off as the day goes on. So, but I'm wearing an original redesign of Trico from Last Guardians, the big, the dog bird, if you want to call it that. That's what everybody seems to call it.
Definitely interesting. What has been your favorite moment for conventions?
It's hard to pinpoint a specific moment. I've had some really interesting interactions that stand out a lot, but basically any kind of interaction I'm able to have with people, whether it's walking around and being like, oh my god, I know what you're dressed as, is always a big plus, to know that I've executed something well enough that somebody else recognizes where it's from. People getting asking questions all the time, just any kind of interaction that's really genuine and sincere and unique is always a huge plus for attending conventions for me.
Is there any cosplayers that you kind of look at as being inspirations?
I don't like to pick and choose favorites because they're always so different in their talents and strengths and the way that they present themselves and the ways that they impact the cosplay industry. I call it an industry because now people are actually doing it professionally, and there's so many other businesses that have come in to support it as well. But definitely some of my favorites would be Yaya Han, who is the cosplay ambassador worldwide, as well as Jessica Nigri, because she's very much known for now doing original cosplay redesigns, which is a huge part of why I love doing cosplay art, just being able to incorporate my own unique twist on characters that are beloved and iconic. And I was very fortunate to have interviewed both of them in the last year, which was a phenomenal experience.
Is this your first time being an actual guest for a convention?
It is, yeah. Obviously, I go to conventions all over the place, especially all over Winnipeg. I try to at least have a presence a notable presence in the local cosplay community. And then traveling is expensive, but I try to branch out where I can. But this is my first time actually like having a table, and believe me, like the greatest thing ever is being able to sit down when you're wearing heels.
We don't have heels, but we definitely agree with the sitting down part.
Yeah.
What has been your favorite part of today for first ever fan quest?
Definitely, I mean, obviously the honor of being selected as a guest for the inaugural year of FanQuest is a huge honor, and I'm so lucky and fortunate to have been selected for that, since there are so many incredibly talented cosplayers in the city. We have such a massive community of cosplayers that also like attend every event and are always coming out with something new and improving their skill set, and always just like blowing my mind. It was also really cool because I got to host my first panel by myself. I have been part of other panels in the past, not cosplay-centric ones, but on other topics. But this is the first time I actually got to do my own panel, kind of speak my own mind about something that I'm incredibly passionate about. So that was incredible. And then obviously, just like any other convention, the unique like fan experiences of being able to interact with people, and questions and selfies and all that cool stuff. It's like being a celebrity in a weird way, but I'm a celebrity in something I'm passionate about, so it's super cool.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about the costumes. How long does it typically take you to go off and create costumes? I would imagine that they all don't take at the same time. Some would probably take longer than others. But typically, how many hours goes into going up and putting together your costumes?
Yeah. I'm incredibly fortunate in that I have a husband who is also incredibly artistic and talented and skilled in ways that I'm not. So we both work on some of my costumes together, which also helps split up the time too. And so we're able to pump out some things a little bit faster than some people when you have a team of two people working on one costume, and one person's doing painting and priming in that, while another one is molding something or shaping something. One person doing sewing, while the other one might be finishing up another part of prop. But even just something like this, which doesn't seem like it has a lot of pieces to it, like there's I've got these crazy like bird feet on right now, which you can't see on camera, but they're there. And I've got like a belt on with a big tail and this breastplate with wings. Surprisingly, even with two people working on it constantly, making this costume was 16 hours a day for both of us working on it for 4 days. So you're talking 60 hours a person, but that's two people working on one costume. So like this costume on its own was over 120 hours. So some certainly exceed above that, and some are definitely a lot less.
Again, what's costumes taking you the most hours to go off and to put together?
I would have to say, it's probably a tie between my Catwoman and the Reader Pulsa. Not even so much for the construction of it, but those have some very interesting engineering components to them. You're talking about characters that have armor that defy reality and defy gravity. The Catwoman, for example, has a breastplate on her that's completely hollow in the middle, so like how do you engineer that in such a way where it's not pulling away from your chest and isn't like falling in weird areas? For the Reader Pulsa, there's armor pieces on her legs that are not strapped to anything, so how do you execute that and defy gravity and create magic? So a lot of the time it's kind of just creating some kind of logistical engineering and magic to just make the costume happen. And then once it actually comes together, then that's the easy part.
If you could choose any one that you haven't actually done yet, what would you cosplay as?
Oh boy, that's a sensitive subject because I've got like a project list of over 20 cosplays that I plan to do in the next 3 or 4 years. And yes, I have a schedule that is like toned down or like that specific, where I have cosplay projects already in the works in some respect for like the next 3 years. But the roster I have, I've already sort of executed one of my dream cosplays, which I wanted to do something that was humanoid but kind of alien looking. Like there were aspects of it that you looked like a person, but there was also something a little bit off about you. And then the Rita Repulsa design came out, and I'm like, well, that's it then, because I was thinking like that, or like something from like Starcraft, or it's a human, but there's something that's a little bit alien and weird about them. So like that part of it's done. At some point, I would love to do some kind of ball gown, because it seems like there's just so much. It's very large and it calls a lot of attention to it, but you also need to put a ton of sewing skill into it, and that's something that I do sewing, but like that's like a masterpiece of sewing to be able to do some kind of gown.
Yeah, I definitely can't imagine that at
Yeah.
all.
Mostly I do armor and stuff though, so it's like, well, that's a lot easier, and some people find armor incredibly intimidating.
Nothing wrong with armor. So I think some of the biggest things were medieval stuff. Wow, I actually had other questions and now I can't remember.
That's what you get for not writing them down.
It's been a long day.
It has been a long day. I hear ya. I hear ya.
Wow, I feel like an amateur now.
Oh, we are amateurs.
Are you? Do you just go to conventions here in Canada, or do you travel elsewhere as well?
Obviously, it's expensive, and everything, including my cosplay budget, comes out from my own money from my day job. And traveling, even in Canada, can be expensive. Never mind trying to travel outside of that. I'm trying to hit a few more conventions Canada-wide and give my home country a little bit more love than what I do. So this year I've made the trip out to Calgary for the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo, and in the fall I'll be heading to Edmonton for their Entertainment Expo as well. In the past I've also gone to Regina Fan Expo, and then going beyond that, I've been able to hit a couple conventions in the States, and I'm starting to try to hit a couple where I can, even though it's a little bit pricey. But I was able to go to RTX in Austin, Texas last year, where I was also able to meet Skinny, one of my heroes. And I've gone to MegFest twice, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. Next year I'll be hitting KatsuCon, which is also in Washington, D.C., in the same venue as MegFest.
I want to go back to something you said earlier. You said you had interviewed Ya and
Jessica. Yeah,
Jessica. Did you do that through someone else, or did you just do that out of your own personal interest?
I mean, obviously they're both huge role models of mine, so that was obviously why wouldn't I jump on that opportunity? But I used to write a weekly column for AYB Online, who's a local nerd. Well, they used to be nerd culture. And now they go with more esports stuff, so I'm no longer writing a column with them. But I had an opportunity to be not only their cosplay columnist and convention columnist, but when I also traveled to some of these other conventions as well, I also sort of acted as their cosplay and convention correspondent, which allowed me the opportunity to be able to interview these cosplay guests and kind of give them a little bit of content on site as to what conventions were like, and review them, as well as the opportunity to interview these cosplay guests.
Okay, I actually thought of a question. You talking about interviewing them? Is there any cosplayer that you would love to interview you, other than those two?
Oh boy, I mean, there are an amazing amount of phenomenal cosplayers. I would love to have a discussion with Kamui Cosplay, who is another incredibly talented, well-known cosplayer. She was able to take her brand of Kamui Cosplay and be able to branch out and offer tutorial books and sell and publish these books in the public, as well as she's been able to expand and do video tutorials as well. So, and she is one of the people who sort of pioneered taking thermoplastic and turning it into a cosplay material that's now widely known and become like an industry standard for materials. So to be able to have any kind of discussion with her would be an absolute honor.
How many costumes do you do in a year? And that's not just making. That's just showcasing at conventions, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, my current roster of active cosplays is probably around 14 to 15 cosplays. Obviously, that's growing all the time as I bring out new stuff, and I might retire a few of them as well if they're starting to get a little bit old or just not up to the skill set as what I'm able to showcase now. But I mean, I try to bring out about 4 new cosplays every year, and now that's starting to grow a little bit more as I'm starting to be able to travel a little bit more and really showcase how my talents have improved over time.
That is amazing.
It is not this.